Outside of Time Episode 4. In the previous episode, Xu Qing awakened to a breakthrough that sharpened his senses and strengthened his body, giving him the power to defeat threats that once pushed him to the edge. In the quiet of the night, he encountered the timid little girl who came only to express her gratitude. A gesture he brushed off as he prepared for the challenges ahead. With dawn came new confidence, yet the lingering pain in his left arm reminded him that the strange substances inside his body were far from gone. As Xu Qing explored the bustling campsite, he noticed the shift in how others viewed him, no longer a frail youth, but someone to be wary of, someone to respect. While observing the chaotic life around him, from scavengers to wild dogs, he finally arrived at a busy general store, where he spotted the same little girl now working hard under harsh treatment. Calm and focused, Xu Qing stepped forward toward the counter, ready to secure what he needed for his survival. At the end of the previous episode, Xu Qing faced the indifferent shopkeeper, unaware that this simple purchase might lead to unexpected consequences. What will happen next? Stay tuned. And the story continues. How are the white pills sold? The white pills are limited, so we only sell 5 of them per day. There are still 2 pills remaining in the quota today. Each pill costs 10 spirit coins. Xu Qing stood before the counter, his expression calm, though inside he felt the familiar tension of someone constantly balancing survival against scarcity. The shopkeeper, who seemed to recognize him from the beast-slaying incident the day before, treated him with a slightly friendlier look, but the price still made Xu Qing frown. The cost of those 2 pills would strip away nearly all of the savings he had worked so hard to accumulate over the years. Even so, the stabbing pain from the mutation point on his arm left no room for hesitation. He reached into his worn leather pouch, counted out 20 spirit coins with careful precision, and placed them on the counter. The shopkeeper swept the coins away and tossed him a sack. Inside were the 2 white pills he had paid for, except their surface was discolored, tinged with a faint green rot, lacking the fragrance of a truly fresh medicinal pill. The shopkeeper gave a casual explanation, insisting that every pill in the campsite looked like this, and that even if they were half-rotted, they still worked. His tone was insincere, almost amused. Xu Qing did not argue, he simply packed the pills away, intending to ask Captain Lei about them later. He turned to leave, when a sudden instinct pricked at the back of his neck. A sharp gleam flashed through his eyes, and he sidestepped instantly. A hand cut through the air where he had just been standing. Raising his gaze, Xu Qing saw the long-faced scavenger from earlier, the same one who had bullied the little girl, now frozen in surprise. Behind him, a fat, round man stood blocking the exit, yellow teeth exposed in a grin. Whispers rippled through the shop as people recognized them: Fat Mountain and Horse 4. Members of the Bloodshadow team. The shopkeeper quickly made it clear that he would not interfere. Thunder and Bloodshadow were rivals, and he had no intention of getting caught in the middle. Horse 4 stepped forward with a sinister glint in his eyes. He claimed he had killed many giant horn pythons and would not make things difficult. All Xu Qing needed to do was surrender the pills, and he would be allowed to leave unharmed. If not, they would simply slit his throat and take them from his corpse. The threat itself barely stirred Xu Qing's expression. He evaluated the situation with cold precision: 2 opponents at roughly the 2nd level of spiritual strength. Both dangerous, especially together, and this was the busiest street in the campsite. Reinforcements would arrive quickly if a fight broke out. Depending on others was not his way. Without a word, he tossed the sack to Horse 4 and walked out as soon as Fat Mountain moved aside. To the onlookers, this was the natural order of things. Strength ruled, and weakness bowed. But none of them noticed that when Xu Qing disappeared into the distance, he did not truly leave. Instead, he slipped into the shadows, silent as a hunting wolf, trailing the 2 men with unwavering focus. Hours passed, the sky darkened. Fat Mountain and Horse 4 moved from place to place, unaware that a pair of sharp, watchful eyes followed them from rooftops, alleys, and shifting darkness. Finally, under the cold glow of the moon, the 2 men parted ways. Fat Mountain wandered toward a lively bonfire, But Horse 4 walked alone toward the tents on the outskirts, clearly seeking pleasure for the night. His expression was relaxed, even smug. That was when the wind shifted behind him. He turned sharply, but the path was empty. His face paled. A small hand shot out from the darkness, clamping tightly over his mouth. A dagger flashed, slicing across his throat with ruthless precision. Blood sprayed into the night as his eyes widened in shock and terror. He tried to struggle, but the strength holding him was relentless. Xu Qing dragged him backward, deeper into the shadows, his feet scraping helplessly across the dirt. When they were hidden from sight, Xu Qing waited until the man weakened from blood loss and suffocation before letting him fall. With dim moonlight illuminating his expressionless face, Xu Qing began searching Horse 4's pockets, recovering the stolen pills along with several others, plus coins and scattered belongings. Horse 4 whimpered, trying to speak, perhaps to explain, perhaps to beg, perhaps to insist that his earlier threat had been nothing more than posturing. But the wound in his throat allowed no words, only weak, desperate sounds. Xu Qing did not look at him with anger or satisfaction, only cold purpose. He drew out a cloth bundle, unfolded it carefully, and revealed a snake head, its venomous fangs still potent. He pierced Horse 4's body with one fang, injecting the corrosive poison with practiced familiarity. Horse 4 convulsed violently as his flesh began to melt. Xu Qing waited in silence, then gently covered the man's eyes with his hand, allowing the final moments to pass in darkness. When the body dissolved into a pool of blood, he collected the clothing and remaining items into a pouch and faded into the night. Only then did two hidden observers step forward from the darkness, the mysterious old man in purple, and his ever-present servant, the same pair who had watched Xu Qing in the beast fight arena. The old man inspected the melted remains, then looked toward the faint outline of Xu Qing disappearing far away. Admiration glimmered in his eyes. He praised Xu Qing's patience, decisiveness, and ability to kill while still handling the aftermath with care. Such praise was rare from him. The servant looked surprised. It was unusual for anyone to catch the old man's attention, much less twice. They spoke briefly of an incoming Grand Master and of their hopes to persuade him to join the Seven Blood Eyes instead of remaining bound by the rigid purple earth. The old man seemed amused and pleased at the thought. Then, with a final glance toward the direction Xu Qing had vanished, the old man smiled. The old man laughed and seemed like he was very happy. He then glanced in the direction Xu Qing left. Let us go take a look at what this little wolf cub wants to do next. During March, although spring had returned, the weather was still somewhat chilly. If Xu Qing had just exited the forbidden zone, the cold wouldn't matter to him. But if he was outside for too long, his body would still feel the bone-chilling cold. The night wind sliced across the campsite with an icy bite, drifting between tents and abandoned structures like a cold whisper. Xu Qing walked silently through it, wrapping his thin coat tighter around his body. The cold was something he had learned to endure, but tonight it seeped into his bones in a way he could not ignore. Even so, he pushed forward. There was still one task left unfinished. Wild dogs prowled the outskirts of the path, their fur bristling, teeth bared. They rushed toward him aggressively. But the moment they caught his scent, a lingering mixture of blood, danger, and death, they froze. Something in his eyes made them cower back into the shadows. Xu Qing barely gave them a second glance. He approached the center ring region of the campsite and crouched behind a darkened house. Ahead of him, a larger building stood silent, its bonfire long since extinguished. Xu Qing remembered clearly. This was where Fat Mountain had gone after parting ways with Horse 4. If the man intended to leave during the night, Xu Qing planned to intercept him. Cold gnawed at his body, but he held still, unmoving like stone. His breath slowed, blending with the shadows. High above, two unseen observers perched on a rooftop, Old Master 7th and his loyal servant. They had followed him again, drawn by curiosity and amusement. When the old man saw Xu Qing waiting so patiently, a faint smile appeared. He spoke softly about weeding out the roots, noting with satisfaction that Xu Qing would not leave anything half done. He even wondered aloud what kind of performance the youth might show if he ever ventured into their camp's forbidden zone. The old man squatted with interest, watching the lone figure below braving the night wind. Time passed silently, an hour drifted by, and no movement came from the large house. Xu Qing's brows slowly furrowed. Something felt off. Rather than persist stubbornly, he chose to withdraw. He slipped back into the darkness, his presence fading as quietly as it had appeared. His footsteps left no trace. He did not return immediately to Captain Lei's residence. Instead, he circled the surrounding paths, testing for anything unusual. Only when he was certain that he had not been followed did he head back toward the courtyard. Once inside his small room, he exhaled deeply, rubbing his hands together for warmth. The motion stirred a faint heat into his numb fingers. After wiping away the dried blood clinging to his clothes and skin, he sat cross-legged on his bed, lost in thought. Fat Mountain and Horse 4 were both dangers, people who threatened him without hesitation. Horse 4 had already paid the price, but Fat Mountain remained another loose thread. In this campsite, risk was not something Xu Qing tolerated. His past experiences, especially the fight with the man called Broken Ox, had carved the rule deep into his mind: eliminate hidden threats before they grow sharp enough to strike. He opened the pouch taken from Horse 4 and examined its contents carefully. Most of the items were trivial, but he found a small metal plate, cheap, rough, perhaps an unfinished component of something. More importantly, there were over 70 spirit coins. For Xu Qing, who had always lived with scarcity, this was no small fortune. He counted the coins meticulously before taking out the white pills. Comparing his own pills to the ones Horse 4 carried, he noticed the same discoloration, the lack of fragrance, the dullness indicating poor quality. The shopkeeper's explanation now seemed more believable, perhaps not entirely, but at least mostly true. After a moment of hesitation, Xu Qing swallowed one pill. He closed his eyes and focused on the sensation coursing through his body. A gradual warmth spread from his core toward the painful mutation point on his left arm. The piercing sensation eased, replaced by gentle comfort. When the warmth faded, he opened his eyes and examined his arm. The color of the mutation point had grown noticeably lighter, and the pain was greatly reduced. Encouraged, he consumed the second pill. The effects repeated: warmth, relief, and a faint cleansing sensation that spread into his limbs. He felt lighter, stronger, faster. Still, he chose not to consume the remaining pills. He placed them in his leather pouch, then settled into cultivation, allowing his strengthened body to quiet itself through meditation. The night stretched on without disturbance. When dawn arrived, Xu Qing opened his eyes refreshed and rose to leave. As he stepped outside, he found Captain Lei sitting in the courtyard, breathing in rhythm with an almost silent calm. Xu Qing did not interrupt him. Instead, he quietly slipped through the courtyard gate and stepped into the cold morning air. Today, the wind was even sharper. Even the wild dogs that usually roamed about had retreated into their dens. Xu Qing's breath misted in front of him. Memories surfaced: harsh winters in the slums, endless nights with no shelter, where cold itself felt like a beast hunting down the weak. He hated the cold. As he walked, a clothing shop caught his eye. Thick, warm garments hung neatly inside, their clean fabric starkly different from the tattered coats worn by most scavengers. Xu Qing stopped. He touched his leather pouch instinctively, feeling the weight of the spirit coins he had taken the night before. Then he stepped inside. The shop was nearly empty. Xu Qing wandered deeper, eyes fixed on the thicker clothes hanging along the wall, evaluating them with quiet seriousness. Near the counter, the shopkeeper spoke to a young staff member. The man barely glanced at Xu Qing, too focused on giving orders. He instructed the staff to bring out custom-made clothes abandoned by their original buyers, garments never collected after being ordered. The worker hesitated, wondering aloud what would happen if the customers returned for them. The shopkeeper's expression darkened with cold realism. Come back? There would be people going missing periodically in this campsite. Some died in the forbidden zone, and some vanished mysteriously. Only ghosts can return. Quickly go and follow my instructions. The shopkeeper impatiently waved his hands. and the assistant quickly ran into the back hall. Not long later, before Xu Qing had chosen his clothes, the assistant already returned with a large number of clothes in his arms. After he hung them up, Xu Qing immediately had his eyes on a deep-colored inner fur leather jacket. This jacket was clearly something someone had once ordered but never returned to purchase. Its craftsmanship was more refined than anything Xu Qing had worn in his life. The material looked smooth and warm, designed not only to block the chill but also to remain light and easy to move in, something a survivor like him greatly appreciated. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, Xu Qing stepped out of the shop wearing that same deep-colored jacket. The moment he fastened it, he could feel how much more comfortable and warm it was compared to his old clothes. The cold no longer clung to his bones. Despite the jacket being too large, almost dangling on his thin frame like an oversized coat, it made him feel strangely secure and quietly proud. For once, he owned something new, something good. Because of that, as he walked through the dusty paths of the campsite, he carefully avoided every muddy puddle and dirty patch on the ground. As though protecting a precious treasure, he intended to search for Fat Mountain as usual, but before he could continue his observation, he heard a rising commotion outside the campsite. A wave of anticipation swept across the scavengers, and they moved toward the noise with hurried excitement. Xu Qing followed their line of sight. Under the sunlight, a convoy of more than 10 horse carriages approached with imposing presence. The guards rode with straight backs, their expressions sharp, their clothes vibrant and pristine, so unlike the ragged scavengers of the campsite. Even their spirit energy fluctuations were powerful enough to make the crowd tense with quiet awe. The people inside the carriages remained unseen, but Xu Qing understood. These were figures of high status. The kind Captain Lei had mentioned, the kind who came to trade or purchase 7-leaf grass used to refine white pills. Soon, Xu Qing spotted Fat Mountain mingling among the gathering crowd. With a quiet shift of focus, he forgot the convoy entirely and slipped into the flow of people, following Fat Mountain from a distance. However, the sudden bazaar that sprang to life around the arriving convoy made the area too lively. Too open, vendors shouted, scavengers haggled, and the streets brimmed with noise. With so many eyes watching, Xu Qing could not find the opportunity he needed. When night fell and the bustle finally began to fade, Fat Mountain returned to his large residence. Xu Qing kept the dagger hidden in his sleeve, but he could only turn away and retreat into the shadows. No chance yet, but patience, he had plenty of that. Back in his small hut, Xu Qing remained awake for a long time before falling asleep, still wearing his new inner fur jacket. Even sleep could not loosen his grip on this small comfort. But when morning came and he prepared to leave again, he hesitated, staring at the jacket. He realized he had been too impulsive yesterday. The jacket was far too conspicuous for a hunter moving in the dark. With a quiet sigh, he folded it carefully and changed back into his tattered coat. The contrast felt sharp and uncomfortable, as if he had just stepped back into the harshness of reality. As he wandered through the campsite, passing by a busy market street, his eyes swept casually over the rows of carriages returning or departing, yet beneath that casual glance, he was searching for Fat Mountain's silhouette, waiting for a mistake, an opening. Far above, on a rooftop overlooking the area, Old Master Seventh yawned as he watched the movements below. His gaze drifted over the carriages, then landed on Xu Qing. He nudged his servant and asked lazily whether the invitation had been delivered to Grandmaster Bai. When the servant reported that the Grandmaster claimed he was feeling unwell, Old Master Seventh clicked his tongue in annoyance. Then, with mild surprise, he noticed Xu Qing's ragged coat. He muttered in confusion about why the boy had changed out of his brand new clothes. From the rooftop, Xu Qing simply blended into the crowd, unaware of the old man's attention. His focus locked on Fat Mountain with calm persistence. The entire day passed like this: quiet pursuit, hidden patience, silent observation. When night returned and the crowds thinned, Fat Mountain suddenly altered his path. Instead of returning home, he slipped into the outer ring region of the campsite, a remote area usually avoided at night. Xu Qing froze for a breath. Had his target sensed him? Had he been too obvious? But after carefully watching the surroundings, He realized Fat Mountain was alone. No backup, no ambush. The darkness of the outer ring swallowed noise, light, and witnesses. It was the perfect place for either a kill or a trap. Xu Qing circled ahead. Arriving first, he hid in the shadows, blending with the cold night air as he waited. Moments later, Fat Mountain's footsteps echoed into the clearing before stopping abruptly. With a cruel tone, Fat Mountain called out, admitting that he had sensed someone following him since the previous day. He mocked Xu Qing, warning that the Bloodshadow Gang would not spare him even with Captain Lei's protection. If Xu Qing did not step out now, next time Fat Mountain would not be alone. Xu Qing stepped out of the darkness without hesitation. Fat Mountain sneered, revealing he had already guessed that Horse 4 had died by Xu Qing's hand. But rather than anger, he showed satisfaction. Horse 4 had long displeased him, and Fat Mountain had planned to eliminate him eventually. What he really cared about was the object inside Horse 4's pouch, an object he now believed Xu Qing carried. His eyes glinted with greedy determination as he lunged forward. Despite his plump body, Fat Mountain's speed was astonishing. The air around him rippled with spirit energy, forming a visible barrier like a swirling coat of cold wind. His cultivation had already reached the 3rd level of spirit energy refinement, far stronger than an ordinary scavenger. This was Xu Qing's first true head-on fight against another cultivator. The dangerous power radiating from the incoming attack was enough to make anyone hesitate, but Xu Qing did not. His confidence in his strength and speed was absolute. As Fat Mountain barreled toward him like an icy boulder, Xu Qing launched forward with equal ferocity. He pushed his body to the limit, moving so fast that afterimages trailed behind him. At the critical instant, he slipped to the side, avoiding the collision entirely. In the blink of an eye, he dodged Fat Mountain. When Fat Mountain was clearly startled, Xu Qing had already arrived behind him. After that, he lifted his right hand and erupted forth with the entirety of his strength in a single punch. This was the first time Xu Qing used all his strength. This punch directly caused thunderous claps and created an explosive boom when it landed on Fat Mountain's body. The impact of that blow shattered the air barrier surrounding Fat Mountain, the protective layer of spirit energy cultivation he relied on. Inch by inch, it crumbled like cracked glass under the weight of Xu Qing's raw physical force. Fat Mountain's massive body convulsed violently. His inner organs churned, twisted, and recoiled from the shock. And with a sharp, wet sound, he spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. Xu Qing's eyes darkened even further, his killing intent igniting like a blade being drawn under moonlight. Even before the echoes of the punch faded, the iron stick appeared in Xu Qing's right hand. He moved with fierce precision, brushing past Fat Mountain as the man staggered backward in panic. Riding the momentum of his step, Xu Qing thrust the iron stick toward Fat Mountain's head with lethal intent. But just as the strike was about to land, Xu Qing's expression shifted sharply. Instinct screamed at him, and he instantly retreated, leaping backward with explosive speed. A flicker of ruthlessness flashed across Fat Mountain's eyes. From his ears, 2 thin black streaks shot outward, slicing through the darkness toward Xu Qing's face. These black streaks were not weapons, they were winged centipedes, each bristling with venom and moving with terrifying speed. The air hissed as they cut through it, closing the distance in a heartbeat. Xu Qing reacted instantly. His left hand drew the dagger in a clean flash of steel. With 2 swift slashes, he cut through the first centipede and then the second. The last one died when it was only 7 inches from his eyes, its body splitting apart before it could latch onto him. The danger was so close, so sudden, that it only deepened the icy resolve in Xu Qing's gaze. He surged forward again. Fat Mountain, during the brief window created by Xu Qing's retreat, managed to regain a portion of his composure. His inner organs settled enough for him to form a set of rapid hand seals. His face flushed a deep red as he forced spirit energy to surge upward. Then, he opened his mouth and spat out a thick cloud of poison mist. The mist billowed outward in a wide radius, twisting and churning as it floated toward Xu Qing. Everywhere it passed, faint crackling sounds erupted, proof of its corrosive and lethal potency. After releasing it, Fat Mountain paled dramatically. His enormous belly shrank noticeably, as though the mist had drained a portion of his life force. He staggered backward, dread lingering beneath the ruthlessness in his eyes. Xu Qing's strength had surpassed anything he had expected. Even though Fat Mountain was at the 3rd level of spirit energy cultivation and wielded deadly poisons, he had failed to kill Xu Qing in his first onslaught. And if his poison mist could not finish the job, he knew he might have only one option left: shout for help. With allies nearby, Xu Qing would be forced to flee or die. But that raised a new problem. If others arrived, it would be nearly impossible for Fat Mountain to secure the object he wanted from Horse 4's pouch. In the depths of his struggle, he brought out a small, ominous object, a piece of amber. Within it was a scorpion tail, perfectly preserved, wicked and sharp. This was a taboo item, a trump card he had never wanted to use. The side effects were grave, perhaps even life-threatening. As he hesitated, his gaze flicked to the dense poison mist where Xu Qing had disappeared. But before he could decide, before he could even draw breath, the poison mist violently split apart. Xu Qing shot out from within it like an arrow released from a taut bow. His speed tore the mist away in billowing waves. Fat Mountain's eyes widened, dazzled by the sheer ferocity of the approach. He jerked his right hand upward, desperate to crush the amber and shout for help. But his hesitation had doomed him. In a single instant, a raven black iron stick flashed through the air with cold, merciless precision. It pierced straight through Fat Mountain's head as effortlessly as a hot knife slicing through butter. Blood sprayed outward in thin arcs, some of it landing across Xu Qing's clothes and face. Fat Mountain froze mid-motion. His hand still hovered near the half-cracked amber. But he could not move, could not speak, could not resist. His massive body trembled once, then toppled to the ground with a heavy, final thud. Xu Qing did not spare the corpse a second glance. Breathing hard, he scanned the surroundings with razor-sharp vigilance. This part of the campsite was remote, abandoned during the night. After confirming that no one had witnessed the fight, he moved quickly, stripping the leather pouch from Fat Mountain's belt. As he prepared to destroy the body with the poison fang, something caught his attention. Fat Mountain's right hand was clenched around something. Xu Qing pried it open and found the amber, the same piece Fat Mountain had almost used. It was half-cracked, its surface shimmering faintly. Inside, sealed in its golden glow, the scorpion tail curled like a sleeping weapon, silent and deadly. Xu Qing pocketed it carefully. Afterward, he melted Fat Mountain's body, reducing it into a puddle of blood that seeped into the earth. He wiped away the bloodstains on himself and vanished into the night without making a sound. Only after he left did 2 figures emerge from the darkness, Old Master 7th and his servant. Old Master 7th watched the place where Xu Qing had disappeared, seemingly uninterested in the fight itself. After a moment, a look of realization crossed his face. He sighed lightly and said, half amused, half understanding, that he finally knew why Xu Qing refused to wear his new clothes that day. The boy feared they would be stained with blood. Someone who had lived in hardship for so long would naturally feel distress over damaging something precious and new. The servant beside him exhaled in relief. For the entire day, Old Master 7th had been trying to figure out the reason behind Xu Qing's choice. Now that he finally understood, he no longer needed to ponder or hear himself question it over and over. Throughout this entire day, Old Master 7th had been wondering why this brat refused to wear his new clothes. Right now, there was finally an answer. So, this meant that he didn't need to keep hearing and pondering over the reason why every time. In the darkness of the night, Xu Qing's figure was like a cat. He proceeded forward nimbly and silently, his hand pressed against his mouth occasionally as he forcefully bore with the impulse to cough. At first, suppressing the cough was manageable, but as he moved deeper into the night, the constant pressure on his lungs began to build. Each breath burned like fire, and the relentless urge to cough turned his body pale and tense. His movements remained careful and calculated, each step light, avoiding the smallest noise. He had to survive the aftereffects of Fat Mountain's poison mist, which had invaded his lungs with deadly precision. Each cough he stifled was a gamble. A single misstep might alert someone nearby. and in the darkness of the campsite, a miscalculation could be fatal. Luckily, he was not far from his small residence, and the compactness of the scavenger campsite worked in his favor. Soon, he spotted Captain Lei's courtyard, familiar and safe from outside interference. Xu Qing did not rush forward immediately. He paused, taking several deep, controlled breaths, allowing his body to appear normal and masking any lingering weakness caused by the poison. Once he felt steady, he slowly approached the gate, pushing it open with careful precision so that the creak of the hinges did not give him away. Inside the little house, Xu Qing could no longer contain the lingering effects of the poison. His lungs rebelled, and he coughed violently. The blood that came up was black and thick, sizzling as it hit the wooden floor, a clear sign of the venom's potency. With the first spasm, his pallor began to ease, replaced gradually by the faint blush of regained vitality. Panting heavily, Xu Qing seated himself cross-legged and initiated his breathing technique, letting the recovery from the purple crystal work through his system. It took time, but eventually, his breathing normalized, and the color returned to his face. "What a fierce poison," he murmured under his breath. Fat Mountain's last attack had been no ordinary assault. It contained one of the highest-grade poisons used among scavengers, capable of incapacitating even experienced fighters. Xu Qing reflected on his decision during that encounter. Dodging the attack could have resulted in Fat Mountain fleeing and calling for reinforcements, which would have made retrieving the item from Horse 4 impossible. Pretending to be injured was also risky. Fat Mountain's cunning could have easily discerned any deception. Xu Qing had relied on the recovery properties of the purple crystal and his own determination, enduring the poison to finish the fight swiftly and decisively. The crystal had indeed proven effective. The burning sensation in his lungs, the repeated urges to cough, all were signs of the crystal accelerating his recovery. As Xu Qing moved through the courtyard and back to his house, he contemplated the nature of his adversaries. Among the scavengers, few were simple or predictable. If not for Xu Qing's speed and decisiveness during the battle with Horse 4, his attacks might have been countered, resulting in a prolonged struggle. These reflections allowed him to pinpoint his weaknesses, further refining his strategies for future confrontations. Sitting down, Xu Qing opened his leather pouch. His eyes gleamed with calculation as he examined the contents. Horse 4's belongings were ordinary in appearance, but one item stood out, a small metal plate. It looked like nothing more than a mundane ingredient, yet its presence among otherwise trivial items raised questions. Could this seemingly ordinary plate hold a hidden value? Perhaps as an essential ingredient in some rare concoction? Xu Qing could not yet determine its importance, but he placed it aside with care, noting it for future investigation. Next, Xu Qing turned to Fat Mountain's leather pouch. The white pills he had expected to find were absent, but there were plenty of spirit coins and several bottles of unknown poisons. Unfamiliar with the art of poison, he did not dare tamper with them, leaving them untouched. Finally, his eyes fell upon the cracked amber. Xu Qing recalled the image of Fat Mountain clutching it desperately before dying. It seemed significant, yet its purpose remained a mystery. He pocketed it carefully, acknowledging that understanding it would require knowledge he did not yet possess. After organizing both sets of belongings, Xu Qing closed his eyes and continued his cultivation. Since breaking through to the second level of spirit energy cultivation, his required sleep had shortened significantly. He could recover in roughly 2 hours. This allowed him to spend the majority of the day immersed in training, honing his abilities and strengthening both his body and his spirit. The night passed quietly, and Xu Qing remained vigilant, alert to any disturbance that might signal danger or opportunity. As darkness fell once more, he sensed a presence outside. Opening his eyes, he noticed Captain Lei's voice calling from the courtyard. "Kid, come to the courtyard," Lei commanded. Xu Qing rose and walked silently across the room, his gaze meeting the old man's. The courtyard was arranged with a large table, laden with meat dishes and wine, accompanied by 6 chairs, each set with a full complement of bowls, chopsticks, and plates. Captain Lei waved at him casually, inviting him to sit. Xu Qing's eyes briefly scanned the arrangement. Guessing that a gathering was imminent, he settled into one of the seats, sensing that this was more than a casual meal. Have you gotten familiar with the campsite during these few days? Captain Lei asked, glancing outside casually, his tone relaxed but probing. Relatively so, Xu Qing replied, his own eyes scanning the food on the table. The aroma of the dishes, combined with his hunger after an entire day of cultivation, caused his stomach to grumble audibly. Captain Lei chuckled at the sound, admonishing him lightly. Don't rush, wait for them, the old man said. Xu Qing, already anticipating the visitors, nodded silently. Are we waiting for the people from the Thunder Team? He inquired. Captain Lei's nod confirmed his suspicions. But just as the old man was about to speak further, both he and Xu Qing sensed movement outside. Their gazes shifted toward the dimly lit streets. A massive figure approached, each step reverberating with authority. The man's muscular frame dwarfed many of the others in the campsite, even surpassing Broken Ox in sheer bulk and power. His body exuded strength, the muscles clearly defined and tightly packed, radiating an aura of dominance. On his back rested a gigantic finesteel shield, and in his hand he wielded a mace taller than Xu Qing himself. He was striding over with large steps. He carried a gigantic finesteel shield on his back and a mace that was even taller than Xu Qing in his hand. He was striding over with large steps. In this episode, we saw Xu Qing navigating the dangers of the scavenger campsite, testing his strength, and carefully tracking his targets under the cold March nights. He skillfully eliminated Horse 4 and Fat Mountain, proving his strategic thinking and combat abilities while also discovering the hidden value in seemingly ordinary items. Along the way, Xu Qing learned to rely on the power of his purple crystal, enhancing his recovery and honing his cultivation, while carefully observing the complex hierarchy and behaviors of the scavengers. We also witnessed him upgrading his gear, blending patience with tactical intelligence, and preparing for the challenges ahead. What happens next? Stay tuned for the next episode of Outside of Time. If you enjoyed this episode or found it interesting, do not forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel to receive the latest updates on Xu Qing's journey. Thank you for watching, and we will see you again in the next video.